Hey everyone, Joe Hehn here. Thank you for tuning in. And today we are talking about toxic people. What are you doing? You're doing it all wrong. We talked about it. You can't do it that way. You got to do it the right way like I taught you. Just trying to do this brand new job to the best of my abilities, all. These damn customers, they're so annoying and they're rude and they're constantly late and their breath is horrible. It's just gross. It grosses me out. And I'm over it. I'm over it. Well, this is a dental office and they're patients, not customers. So I know, right? Did you hear her earlier when she was like, I love ice cream? What a slut. I like ice cream. You know exactly what I'm talking about, and you're probably picturing them right now, but don't say their name out loud.
Brandy, Heather, Channing, Brianna, Amber, Sabrina, Melody, Dakota, Sierra, Bambi, Crystal, Samantha, Autumn, Ruby, Taylor, Tara, Tammy.
What are you doing? I just told you not to say their name out loud. They may be walking by and hear you and see that you're watching a video about toxic people, putting yourself into danger. But you know exactly who I'm talking about. The toxic person in your workplace, in your school environment, possibly at home. If that's the case, you might want to check out my other video about stress. We may even run into that person while running our errands throughout the day, or we got the very negative neighbor who you try to avoid eye contact with when you're walking to get your mail. You know who I'm speaking about, and there are ways to navigate through those events, the situations, or the environments without yourself adapting or matching or meeting their negative energy. You want to establish your positive energy and not succumb to them, because we know what they do. They suck the life out of a situation. They suck the energy out. They make the whole environment uncomfortable for yourself and all those around you. And it's not a pleasant experience. And so that's why we're here, to learn how to navigate that without succumbing to their toxicity. So of course we're going to deal with our fair share of toxic people, but the point of this video is how to maintain the peace and the positivity within yourself and not matching their energy and not having it ruin your day. And our mind has to wrestle that whole entire situation over and over again, but at least we're not wrestling the actual person. Got it. So how do we manage that toxic person? How do we navigate that situation without feeling toxic ourselves? This is bullshit. What was that? Nothing. I said, bless you. Yeah, I didn't sneeze. Oh, you didn't? Oh, feel better then. First things first, like anything, we need a good game plan, because there are techniques to navigate that situation so that we establish exactly what we're going to do and then we go about it. Of course, if you're entering a toxic situation at work or school, you kind of know what you're getting into. But we're also going to consider ones where it's random events that you're running into people who just kind of suck the life out of that moment too. So the game plan has more than one component. The first component is we have to establish protection for ourselves. We're establishing or creating a positivity security shield around us so that their negative energy is not allowed to pass through here. We're going to do that by centering. This is really powerful and very valuable if we're entering a situation where we know we're going to have to deal with that toxic person like Becky over in accounting. Perfect. Got it. What does it mean to center? What that means is that we're preparing ourselves for when we're about to enter a situation or environment we know to be toxic. We've experienced it before. We've had to deal with him or her on a regular basis, and we know what we're getting ourselves into. So we're going to center, which means we're mentally, emotionally, and spiritually and physically preparing for that situation, for that circumstance or atmosphere. And we're establishing ourselves within peace, within positivity, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So wherever you are, as close to entering that situation as possible, you want to center. So if you're driving to work, or you're having to take the bus back home, or you're riding your bike to school even, you want to make sure you're safe, of course, but when you pull over and you get a moment to yourself, give yourself a few moments before entering that situation. First things first, you're coming to breath. You want to center on your breath and you want to feel that ebb, the inhalation and the exhalation ebb like a slow ocean tide, okay? Whenever our breath is very rapid, we're emotionally kind of upset or we're working out or doing something. So that's kind of a gauge for you when you're breathing very slowly and having deep inhalations and long exhalations. You're at a peaceful state there. That's a really nice place to be. So you're gonna do that preparing to enter this toxic negative situation where that person is going to possibly pull you into their shit. We don't want to be pulled into it, so we're centering, we're establishing that force field, we're establishing that shield of positivity, of compassion. So we're gonna feel our breath come in and out and center on that. We want to clear our mind. We just want to be thoughtless, and then we're going to start saying these things internally in our mind after a few moments of silence, and then we're going to speak them out loud. When I'm about to enter a toxic situation that I know I'll be tested, I know that I will be tried, my patience, my compassion, my sympathy, my kindness, everything's going to be tested there. I want to prep. What I do is I will say a series of words, series of statements and affirmations to myself with vigor, with belief and faith upon entering that situation. And actually, sometimes I'll carry that through into it, okay? Mentally repeating, I am compassionate, I am patient, I am kind, I am affectionate, I am sincere, and I am positive, and I am not going to allow the energy of another to take me off the foundation of positivity, of peace and joy that I now reside within, and I am staying here. This foundation goes very deep into that compassionate space, and this is where I will stay. I am kind, I am patient, I am compassionate, I am affectionate, and I am loving. And I will repeat that again and again and again, just for a few moments in the car, concentrating on my breath. And I'm gonna feel that tension pour out of me, because we will have angst, we'll have anxiety or stress that starts bubbling up when we are about to enter that situation of toxicity, or we're gonna have to deal with that negative person because we've had to do it before and you're getting worried about it before you enter. So technically speaking, you're kind of already navigating and having to deal with that negative energy before you're even around it. That's the power of the mind. So we want to settle the mind and establish the mind, therefore the heart and the emotions, in positivity, in peace, in joy, in a relaxed, calm, serene state of being. And we want to secure that, and that will ebb out. That will fluctuate up beyond our being. It's going to be like that aura just kind of emanating from us, bubbling around, and people will notice it, they will sense it, they'll enjoy it. And that toxic person who needs it most, they too will be affected in a positive measure, sometimes in a negative measure, but that's not your concern right now. Your concern is to anchor yourself into peace, into compassion, into patience. So you're going to come to breath. I am patient. I am compassionate. I am kind. I am understanding. I am sympathetic. And I am going to reside within this positive, peaceful place for as long as possible. And I am prepared to ward off any unwelcome energy that does not mesh or match the energy and the peace and the joy and the patience that I now have. And I am centered, and I am strong, and I am secure, and now I am ready. And therefore, you have just established that security, that force field, that shield around you. You breathe it in, you believe it, you let it reside around you, you let others feel it, and you walk into that situation with that confidence, with that peace, with that joy just exuding from you, emanating from you like a light, okay? And you wear it proudly. and you center yourself before you enter any situation where you think it's going to be trying and testing your patience and your compassion and kindness. Any toxic, negative person or environment, you establish yourself into that space prior. You could be in your car, the bus, the train, the bike, the elevator, escalator, anything. You just need a few moments and you establish that. Right before you open the door, your hand is on the knob. I got this. I am ready. I am secure. Let's do this. And that's centering, and that's establishing yourself within that protective force of compassion, empathy, love, and patience. So centering is great for when we know what we're getting ourselves into. We're going to work, we're going to school, we're going home possibly, and we know that we're going to encounter that toxic person. So we're preparing ourselves for that by centering ourselves in compassion, in patience, in positivity, and in understanding. You centered now? Perfect. Stage 2 of our game plan, it's actually a little bit trickier here. It's more of the mental understanding. I call it, and most other people do, empathy. But we don't always have empathy for other toxic people. And this is the tricky part, is that we want to blame them. We want to kind of hate on them, direct our judgment towards them in a negative manner because we just assume that they're treating us and everybody else or the environment in a toxic, negative way on purpose. And that's not, unfortunately, always the case. Sometimes they just don't know any better. So our job here is to understand possibly why they are, not maybe their particular situation, but to have a general understanding of why somebody is negative or toxic. So with this second part, it entails understanding, having empathy for that person and almost kind of forgiving them for being toxic and negative. This is a way to establish positivity and wisdom in yourself and compassion and kindness ahead of time, which is huge because you're going in there and you've already built up that force field of compassion and understanding and empathy. And what that entails is understanding that when a toxic, negative person is that way, that it may not be intentional. There may be a lot of variables outside of that workplace or school environment which are triggering them to act the way they do. A lot of it is insecurity based. They don't have the self-value that you may have. They feel lacking. And so they'll enter an environment and try to be that control freak, pointing out to people, hey, you're doing this wrong. What are you doing, you jerk? Do this right. So they'll enter that work or school environment and they're just cruel and rude and mean and short and toxic, and they're on a power trip. And we understand that that's not their normal nature, but they're being driven to act like that because of insecurities. They don't have that self-love for themselves. They don't have that value for themselves that you may have. You may have to share an encounter with that person for several moments or several minutes or maybe an hour or two. They don't get to leave. That's in their mind and in their heart 24/7. When they walk away from that situation, that toxicity is like a cloud hovering above them. They can't escape it. That's who they are and they're trapped within that. Having that understanding does play for you because, man, that just plain and simple sucks. They have to deal with that toxicity on a regular basis, moment to moment to moment to moment. You may be dreading going to work or school and having to deal with Tina or Derek over in accounting. I don't know why I always pick on accountants. They're usually really nice people, but my mind goes to accounting. I don't know. I'll try something else, maybe collections or human resources. Sorry. So you may have to deal with them for a moment, but they have to deal with themselves all the time. They can't escape that. And so you having that understanding of how that reality, their existence, their life, gotta be hell. It just can't be enjoyable. They don't know peace. They don't know joy. They don't know tranquility and love because they're always succumbed by this very super toxic mentality and negativity. So in this case, we're trying to perceive and understand, trying to comprehend that toxic person's own suffering. We don't have to understand the particular kind of suffering they may be enduring, but suffering in general. If I hurt myself, you don't have to know or have had experienced the same injury to know pain. you can make the connection, oh yeah, that sucks. I'm sure that's very painful. Think of toxicity as a person who is colorblind and just doesn't even know, can't comprehend, understand, has never heard of other people seeing in color. So they just don't even know any better. They have no way of realizing what they're missing out on because it's not even a possibility for them. You can see in color, they cannot. How much beauty are they missing because of that? And I'm not trying to pick on colorblind people here. My father's slightly colorblind, and I hate when people say that and they justify, but it's just a really good analogy and it adds a lot of color to the situation. Sorry, I shouldn't, yeah. Anywho. No! They're suffering from a very toxic, negative mentality, but they can't escape that. And you can. You have to endure a few moments with them or minutes or whatnot, but they can't escape it. They're there, they're trapped. And so knowing that helps you kind of feel a little bit bad for them, right? Which is better than judging them for thinking they are cruel intentionally or toxic or negative on purpose. So you have an understanding, wow, they're trapped with themselves all of the time. That can't be pleasant. And I only have to deal with it for a little bit. So imagine if you're sitting there watching this glorious sunset. You see every color on the spectrum just painted across the sky. And you look over at Becky from Accounts Receivable.
Wink.
And she's like, what? What's the big deal? Who cares? It's just the sun setting into the ocean. It's all gray and gloomy. What am I missing here? No, you're gonna feel bad for Becky because she's missing out on all this beauty, on all this life, because she has an infliction of being negative and toxic and just can't perceive beyond that. So they're kind of sick in a way. If somebody has a cold or the flu or some kind of disease, do you judge them for it?
Dude, did you hear about Rakesh? He's got diabetes.
Yeah, I did. That's so annoying.
So we need to center ourselves in positivity, in compassion, in patience, in empathy, and understanding. Now on to part 3 of our game plan. Another reason people are toxic or negative is usually because they're stressed out beyond their own ability to manage that stress. And it's seeping and pouring over into every aspect, every capacity of their life. They can't manage, and so their natural reaction is just to react, to lash out, and to be that toxic, negative entity. They don't know any better. It's like the dog that has been kicked and bruised and battered that's at the vet. It does not know the hand that's reaching out to feed him from the hand that's reaching out to beat him. So it just reacts. It's lashing out in a sense because this is its life, and it has learned that it needs to defend. And it's poured over and spilled over into every moment, every encounter, no matter if it's driven by compassion and love and empathy and kindness, or the opposite of fear and anger and distrust. So to touch on insecurities a little bit, when somebody feels that they don't have any value, what they're gonna do normally is kind of inflate their ego at the workplace or in school to try to show off and highlight their value. They want you to perceive them as accomplished or powerful or successful or whatever it is. That behavior that they're exuding, that they're pouring out there, that energy is negative and toxic instead because they don't have the value. They don't have the security that you may have to feel really good about yourself and to treat others with kindness and compassion and patience. They can't register that because they're so afraid of not being perceived as important or valuable. So they're pouring on this ego, this identity really thick to try to impress you. This, of course, backfires. And you just see that this hurt, little, fearful, insecure person is putting out this toxic negative energy because they're scared. So they're acting out and they're playing a part. They're playing a role, a performance of how they want to be perceived, and it's totally working against them. So you having that understanding helps in the moment because you won't see their negative, toxic energy as being attacked personally. You just know that it's driven from these insecurities, from not having the value, from being way too stressed out. So when you're taking all these puzzle pieces and putting them together, you're building an understanding of empathy for that toxic, negative person. You kind of look at it and you're saying, I feel bad for them, or I pity their situation, or I have compassion. I have sympathy, I have understanding. I know they must be going through a hard time. And so I'm not gonna react to them being toxic. I'm not gonna let them drag me down into their stuff. And I wish I could do something to help, and maybe you can, and maybe you can, but at least you can defend yourself. You can establish yourself in that positive, compassionate, empathetic space, and you won't let them in, and you won't exit from there. Also, have you ever had a bad day, or a few bad days, or maybe a bad month, or a whole chapter of bad that you're navigating through, and it's tough, it's trying? A lot of times we're meeting people, especially when we're out running errands and going about our life outside of work and school and family, and we're gonna meet strangers, and we're gonna encounter them for a moment, and we're gonna realize that they are super negative or toxic or whatnot. They may just be having a horrible day, or week, or month, or chapter. There's a quick story I'd like to share with you that highlights that principle perfectly. One of my friends was driving his Jeep down the road one day, and this car comes out of nowhere and cuts him off, nearly nicks the front of his Jeep. He had to swerve to avoid it, and of course, he gets right into that negative, defensive, road rage kind of space, right? What the hell are you doing, bro? Watch where you're driving. And of course, what happens? They pull up at a light right next to each other, right? But my buddy is fuming. He's pissed, rolls down the window, looks at the guy. The guy doesn't say a thing. He just looks over. He's got tears in his eyes, streaming down his face. My buddy doesn't react because he sees right away that, wait, something's not right. This guy's not in a good, healthy, safe spot. And the guy looks from the windshield over to my friend and goes, "I'm sorry. I just lost my son, and I don't know what to do with myself right now." That's a powerful story because you see, then and there, we don't know what's going on in another person's life. We don't know what their day is about. We don't know what their week is about, or their month, or their chapter. We assume they got it all together and they're going about their life being a dick, being negative, being toxic. A lot of times that's not the case. So having a basic understanding that you may have just crossed paths with somebody on a bad day is huge, because you'll immediately forgive them, and you just take that negative energy that they may be putting out there and it goes right off your shield. And you go, hey, chalk it up to that. Probably just having a bad day. I wish them well. There's one other thing to consider, and this is trauma. A lot of people have to endure and suffer through very difficult chapters of their life. And that stuff, it layers on armor. It layers on a defensive shield of their own because they're afraid of getting hurt. And that trauma has caused some pretty severe damage that's rippling out into their future. So if you're working with Jenny at the workplace and she's always been such a nightmare, so toxic, a wet blanket, negative Nancy, all about, but you find out that she's navigating an abusive relationship outside of that, that changes your perspective like that, okay? You understand that, hey, I couldn't imagine being in her situation, in her shoes. I don't know how she's getting through it, but I want to show her that humanity is built up of kindness and it's not abuse. So I'm gonna pour my compassion, pour my kindness, pour my empathy and affection on super thick for her to help balance what she's enduring. So you're taking all those pieces and you're building an understanding of their possible situation. And that helps you protect yourself to stay within your collective shield of empathy, of understanding, of sympathy, of compassion, and kindness. So that when you're entering that situation, you know all this stuff and you won't be judgmental. The big thing is you won't be reactional. So when they put that energy forth, they pour that toxicity into a situation or environment, you're not letting it come to you. You're not ingesting that. You're not letting that embrace you. And you're nestled really nicely into that safe comfort zone of yourself, not reacting to their negativity or toxicity. So just to recap, center. If you're going into a situation, you know, center within that, prepare yourself, repeat those mantras, and establish yourself into that very pleasant, comfy, protective force field of compassion, love, patience, understanding, and peace. Step 2, understanding. We need to know that We cannot judge that person for their behavior, for their action. There are many things we don't know which are probably causing that toxic negative infliction on them. To have compassion, to have empathy, to have understanding for that person is a huge component. Part 3, kindness. Show them what they're lacking somewhere else. Be and embody that compassion, that love for them in that moment as best you can, and without giving too much of yourself and residing within your own healthy space. So you guys are well armed to deal with that toxic negative person. Remember, be kind, show them some love and support, be compassionate, be understanding, be empathetic, be kind and affectionate, and be of love. The best defense is a great offense, and one of understanding and love is your best bet. Good luck.
Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and took away something to help benefit your life in some small way. I'll be pumping out a whole bunch of new stuff, so I want to thank you for joining me along that adventure. Please hit that subscribe button and check out some of my other videos, and I want to thank you again for all of your support and wish you a blessed day.